Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Shane with the guys at Magic, and today I'm with Hunters. Hunter, say what's up.
What's up?
And we're doing your 300 for the call for backup. Made a great 100, and now you're doing 300, right?
I sure am.
Well, let's just jump into it, dude. We're not even gonna make him wait. Tell me about the commander. Tell me what we're doing with this deck. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Yeah, so Call for Backup is the new Precon from March of the Machine. Very excited about the +1/+1 counter theme. We've seen this over and over and over again. It's always a theme, and I feel like every other Precon commander is just like, here's another +1/+1 counter theme. But this one does it a little different. We're actually switching the face commander from Bright Palm Soul Awakener. We are going to be building this deck around Shalai and Hallar. Real quick about Shalai and Hallar. This is a red, a green, and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature, Angel Elf. It's got flying and vigilance. It says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deals that much damage to target opponent. So we're all about putting counters on all of our stuff, and while they're going on the counters, we are dealing damage to our opponent's face.
Your 100 for Shalai and Halar Hunter was really mean. It was scary. I'm sure you're gonna have some crazy stuff for us in store, right?
Absolutely. And if you guys wanted to see that $100 upgrade before this, because this is kind of a continuation, check the link down in the description down below. Click on that video, check the 100.
Well, for your 300 Hunter, what are we adding, dude?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we are sticking, like I said, this is a sequel to the $100 upgrade. So everything you see on screen here is bringing on over from the 100 upgrade. There's one card that is missing from that, and we will talk about it when we get to the removals. But these are all the cards that are sticking with us.
Well, after all those amazing 100 additions, show me the new stuff, dude. Show me the 300.
So for the 300, interestingly enough, I just mentioned that the +1/+1 counter theme is a very, very well-known theme that Wizards likes to do all the time. But the thing about that is some of the best cards for the +1/+1 counter themes don't get enough reprints. So when I try to upgrade this to a maximum power, I grab all those very awesome cards that fit into a +1/+1 counter theme, except they're so expensive. So there's a couple of cards here that I want to talk about. Let's talk about these new creatures. First and foremost, we'll talk about Heliod Suncrowned. It is 2 and a white for a 5/5 legendary enchantment creature god. That is indestructible, and it says as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. And whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And it has another ability where you can pay 1 and a white to say another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So similar to the other cards that we threw in from the 100, the Red Terror and War Elemental, this card is actually an infinite combo with our commander. We can go ahead and give our commander a lifelink, and then when he swings in, because he's flying, let's just fly over the board, hit your opponent. Guess what? That's lifelink damage. We get a counter on our stuff. When we get a counter, we ping someone for 1, but we still have lifelinks. So we're pinging with lifelink, getting a counter, pinging, counter, pinging, counter, pinging, and we win.
Just that easy, dude. It's that easy.
Just that easy with Heliod. And also, another creature with more power, we're adding Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. It's got trample, it's got haste. It says if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on permanent or player instead. And if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kind of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So essentially, with Vorinclex out on the field, whenever we get a counter, we get twice that many counters, which means if Shalai and Halar is on the field, we do twice the much damage, which is fantastic.
I was waiting for this card, man. I knew it wanted to be in your deck. I just knew it wasn't fitting in the 100 just yet.
Wasn't fitting in the 100 because this is almost half of that budget by itself. Vorinclex just keeps going up in price, it seems. But
Well,
with the reprints of Vorinclex getting different versions from these last couple of sets, he is lowering just a bit, but still hovering around $50. So go out and pick this up. It is an expensive one, but it is so good.
it's, in my opinion, the better Fortnite, but great card, dude.
Yeah.
Well, you got those pretty big bomb of creatures, but what else we throwing in the deck?
Yeah, so these are a couple different spells. One instant, one artifact, one enchantment. These all green cards once again. First one, Heroic Intervention. It is 1 and a green for an instant. It says permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Straight up, we're just trying to protect our stuff, especially when people see that we're kind of a combo deck. We are going to be target on our back. So Heroic Intervention, kind of putting this into the deck just to say, please don't mess up my combo.
A down and dirty little protection spell, dude. Love it.
Yeah, and like I said, this is also another one that just keeps kind of hovering around $20. So speaking of another expensive card, we have the Great Henge. The Great Henge is 7 and 2 green for a legendary artifact. It says this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You can tap it to add 2 green. You also gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Ever since this was printed back in Throne of Eldraine, this has been an absolute staple in anything green that deals with counters. It's insane because our creatures are going to be big with counters, so this is not ever going to cost 9 mana. It's a mana rock with life gain, and it does the counter thing and draws you a card. This artifact does everything you need it to do.
It's too big, dude. It's too big and too good.
Too big, too good. Good news, however, it is getting a reprint. Hasn't got a reprint yet, but in July from the Lord of the Rings set, we are getting a reprint from this in the Commander product, which is a fantastic way to push out reprints. Hopefully, this brings down the price just a bit because it is also a pricey one.
I'm sure we'll bring it down just a bit.
Yeah, the Great Henge, like I said, all these cards, they need to be reprinted. Please, Wizards, reprint these cards that are so good. Branching Evolution is going into the deck. It is 2 and a green for an enchantment. It says if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. So exactly like I said about Vorinclex, anytime you have an effect that puts double the amount of counters on stuff, Shalai and Hallar just says double that damage to your opponent's face. It's fantastic.
What a theme, dude. What a theme.
What a theme.
Well, well, I love all these spells in your counters matter deck. Did you do anything to bolster your lands?
I did. So in the $100 upgrade, I threw in the bond lands that had green in them because we're mostly green. Here, I'm just kind of evening it out. So Spectator City is a bond land that's coming in here. It taps for a red or white. Comes in tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. We are playing Commander, so we're not going to have anything less than 2 or more opponents unless it's a 1v1, in which case you're
What are you
doing
doing?
better. You're doing better than you already are. You've already killed off 2 opponents. Stomping Ground and Temple Garden, 2 shock lands coming in. These ones also tap for green. Stomping Ground also taps for red. Temple Garden taps for white on top of the green as well. They come into the battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. Fantastic little cards here. They also are a Forest Plains and a Mountain Forest, respectively, which means you can go and fetch for them. And the final land we're throwing in here, which I do not know why this wasn't in the deck to begin with. It was actually in the Growing Threat Precon deck. But this one is Karn's Bastion. Karn's Bastion is land. You can tap it for colorless, or you pay 4, tap it to proliferate. So let's just pump up the team that has +1/+1 counters by paying 4 mana and dealing all that damage every time we do.
Having proliferate on a land is nuts for a counters deck, dude.
It really is. It's so good.
Well, that is a pretty good upgrade you got. Is that all of them so far?
That is going to be all of my additions for the 300 list. Like I said, Wizards of the Coast, please reprint some of these cards. You are making my budget harder than it needs to be.
So we saw some awesome new additions, which unfortunately means we're going to come to the point where you got to cut some stuff, dude. What are we cutting?
Yeah, so once again, first and foremost, we will throw up on the screen all of the cuts from the $100 upgrade. I am keeping it all the same there. All the cuts you see are being removed from the Precon deck itself.
All right, keeping the cuts the same with the 100. Love it, love it. But you did add some new ones. So what are the new cuts you're adding on top of these?
Yeah, so like I said, I wanted to talk about the card that was missing from the $100 upgrade, and that was actually Hardened Scales. I did remove Hardened Scales from this $300 list because we are putting Branching Evolution, which is just better. Instead of putting one extra counter, you just double the counters. That's fantastic. We're also keeping the cards that we added that did the same thing, like Ozolith, the Shattered Spire, and Cammy, the Whispered Hopes. Both of them, both of those cards had Hardened Scales text on them already, plus extra. So I just felt like we're throwing in Branching Evolution. We don't need this many enchantments. So Hardened Scales was the odd man out, just because we're trying to fit that $300 budget. But moving on to other cards from the Precon and the 100 that we haven't removed for, we've got two creatures that I felt didn't do enough. This first one, Elite Scale Guard. It is 4 and a white for a 2/3 creature human soldier. It says when it enters the battlefield, bolster 2. If you don't know what bolster means, it means choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And it says whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Very cool ability, don't get me wrong, and we get to throw 2 counters on one of our creatures that is the weakest, essentially. But that's kind of it. That's all it does. It is 5 mana for that ability. It is a 2/3. Seems pretty easy to kill, but yeah, it's just a little too pricey in my eyes, and we're just fitting other better stuff like Heliod and Vorinclex in the deck. So we're having to make room for them. The other creature I'm getting rid of is High Sentinels of Arishan. That is 3 and a white for a 3/4 creature bird soldier. It's got flying and it says High Sentinels of Arishan gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. And another ability where you can pay 3 and a white to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It is a kind of an expensive ability to pay 4 to put 1 counter on things. And it's also not giving itself counters, but just rather a bump. So if by chance your creatures don't have any +1/+1 counter on it, it's still just a 3/4 until it gets something. So I just felt like this wasn't doing enough for me. It's getting out of the deck.
Yeah, your additions were much better. So we saw you cut some creatures for the better creatures you're adding. What are some other spells you're cutting?
Some other spells. This one was a hard one. I won't lie. Flame Shadow Conjuring. I'm a fan of this. It is 3 and a red for an enchantment that says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 red. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So making a token copy of something that gets haste immediately is fantastic for 1 mana. But our deck doesn't have a lot of ETBs. So I just felt like this wasn't doing enough in our deck. And for that reason, I'm cutting it out. It also doesn't do anything with the +1/+1 counter thing. So
Sometimes you gotta make those hard cuts, man.
sometimes you do. Semester's End also was difficult for me. I tried to keep this as long as I could, but in the end, this was the final cut I made of the deck. It is 3 and a white. It's an instant. It says exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of the next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. So it is a protection spell that protects not only creatures but planeswalkers as well. But I threw in Heroic Intervention that just gains hexproof and indestructible, and we don't get to lose our counters because this does blink things, which means if we did have counters on all of our creatures, it removes all of them, puts the creatures back into the field, and gives them 1 counter. Kind of just resets everything. It's a very good card, but for 4 mana, 2 mana instant that protects all of our stuff is just a little better in my eyes.
Yeah, I like what you did there. I like that choice. And since you added a bunch of lands, what are we cutting for lands?
Yep, it's time to get rid of the temples. So the Temple of Abandon, Temple of Plenty, Temple of Triumph. They are getting out of the deck. They all enter the battlefield tapped, and when they enter, you scry one. They tap for their respective colors. Abandon is red and green, Plenty is green and white, and Triumph is red and white. We added shocks and the other spectator seating. It's exactly the same colors, and they don't enter tapped if you don't want them to. So, just better in my eyes. The temples, they just come out. And the other land that was removed was Llanowar Reborn. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a green. It also has Graft 1, which means the land enters with a +1/+1 counter. And when a creature enters, you can put that +1/+1 counter onto the creature. It's just one counter, and this land enters tapped. Anything that says tapped is just too slow in an upgraded build like this. So it's also getting the axe.
Yeah, it seems like a good pre-con card, but once you move past the pre-con, make room for the big boys.
That's right. It's time to make room for the bigger stuff.
So is that your $300 upgrade, bud?
That is going to do it. That's going to be my $300 upgrade. Again, this deck is super mean. It's just from the 103 cards that just go infinite with our commander is absolutely nuts. You can go ahead and I didn't put any tutors in the deck, but that is 100% something you can do if you're trying to make this deck just a combo. I'm a player that just likes to, if I draw the combo, then I'll play the combo, but I'm not searching for just a combo.
I feel that, dude. I'm the same way. But we gave you the budget of $300 with all of these additions, including the 100. What is your total?
So the total of this deck at the time of recording is $301.45.
Just a bit outside.
Just a little over, just by $1.45. I have seen some of these cards that I'm adding into the deck go up in price because of this deck is a little bit popular. Like I said, at the time of recording, it could be just a little over that price too when you're watching this. So who knows? But it's around $300. So go out and pick it up.
When the Great Hand gets its reprint, you never know, that price could be dropping.
It 100% will drop. As soon as it gets put in a Precon deck, you better believe it drops, or it should
You
at least.
better believe it.
It also might get reprinted in Commander Masters. That'd be really cool.
That would be very cool for us players. Cheaper is better for us. Well, Hunter, I'm loving the upgrade. This is sick. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts, Shalai and Hallar, like I said earlier, very powerful card, especially just going crazy with the combos. But whenever you just deal damage to someone's face just by putting counters on things, that's pretty sweet in my eyes.
It's pretty hard to stop, yeah. If you guys want to see the complete upgrade list, check the description below. Hunter will have the mox build down there. Check it out, build it. Also, leave a comment for Hunter, letting him know, did he do well? Did he miss one? We love feedback. We're always getting better at this. Let us know. While you're down there, we have all of our socials in the description at Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. It's all at Guys That Magic. So follow us there. Make sure you subscribe to Guys That Magic. You don't want to miss out on any of these upgrades coming out. Also, drop us a like if you enjoyed the video. And until the next time, I'm out of here. Bye bye.
Peace.